empyema, they're sick. They're very sick, okay? Because think about, how we're going to, we've got all that pus in there. How are we going to get, how are our antibodies and our macrophages and our white blood cells, how do they get to the middle of that pus? They can't really get there, can they? Because there's no circulation. So if you have someone who's got empyema, not inside a pocket of fluid, if you've got an infected pocket of fluid anywhere, there's no circulation, so you can't mobilize any of your immune defense mechanisms. Well, you can mobilize them to the outside, but you can't get to the inside. And so what ends up happening is you have more and more fluid and more pus, and the thing gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yes,
Why
Crystal?
don't they just remove it by
They do
centesis?
sometimes.
Okay.
They do sometimes remove it by thoracentesis and drainage.
Or a chest tube.
Chest tube that stays in there, right? Yep. It takes a long time to resolve on its own. But remember, if you have a sterile pocket of fluid and there are no bacteria in there, if you inject a needle, are you increasing the risk? I heard a story on NPR this morning. Actually, it had to do with a needle biopsy and a guy who almost died because his prostate marker was high. So his urologist said, let's do a biopsy. He's a perfectly healthy guy. So he goes in, has all the preps, does a biopsy, needle biopsy, no problem. Next day, gets up, plays tennis, has a busy day, is on his way to a business meeting that afternoon and didn't get there. They went to his GPS tracker on his car, found him 15 miles from where he was supposed to be. Son tracked him down, said, come on, Dad, we're going. Took him to the hospital, and he had sepsis. And he'd gotten sepsis with a nosocomial infection from a needle biopsy for a benign prostatic lesion, and he almost died. So if we don't think there's anything infective in that pleural effusion, do we want to just go sticking a needle in there? Now, granted, the skin's not contaminated like the gut can be when you're doing, prostate biopsy. But needles are not without risk.
So what do you do, blood testing first to see if there's sepsis? How do they determine, if you have a fluid that's affecting your breathing?
You would have some other symptom.
Cardiac function.
Well, if it was affecting cardiac function, it depends upon the size of the effusion. But if we don't think it's infectious, it takes a long time for it to just, it doesn't just go away overnight. It takes a while. Resolution is a prolonged process. And in the book and also on the PowerPoint, you all can upload these, you know that, right? Here's a picture of the effusion right here. See, the lung cannot expand. All right? Pleural effusion right around the lung. Visceral perfusion between the visceral membrane and the parietal, pleural effusion is right here. Parietal pleura, excuse me. Parietal pleura and the chest wall. Pleura, 3 membranes, right? I remember that from anatomy and physiology. You got about 10 more minutes and then we'll move, I think. What time did I say? All right. We're on target. Let's talk about some other causative factors of pulmonary disease. Cigarette smoking and air pollution. What do we mean we've got a code orange?
Oh, it's sensitive group.
Bad. None of us should be outside. In Atlanta, we have bad ozone. Okay? It means we shouldn't be outside breathing because the particles in the air, there are lots of them, and they're going to cause respiratory problems in the very young, the very old, and the compromised. So when we have pulmonary disease, if we have someone who lives in an area that's with chronically badly polluted air, then we can cause pulmonary disease. Okay? And cigarette smoking. First hand, you're bringing the garbage in your lungs. Second hand, you're leaving the unfiltered garbage out there for the rest of us. And third hand, it's on your clothes. You can smell it, there's a molecule of it there. Okay? There's a molecule of carcinogen there. So these are environmental causative factors also for pulmonary disease. We have to talk a little bit about acute respiratory distress syndrome. You'll be getting into this a little bit more with advanced med surg, but it happens with severely injured lungs, okay? There's a sudden progressive inability to breathe, basically. There's a pulmonary edema. So what's edema? Fluid, okay? So there's a massive amount of fluid that's suddenly in the lung parenchyma. What do you think that does to compliance, lung compliance? Okay, it's going to be decreased, right? Because it's
Nowhere to go.
it has nowhere to go. Exactly. It's bilateral. It's on both sides. Pneumonia may be unilateral. It could be right-sided pneumonia. It could be left-sided pneumonia. With acute respiratory distress syndrome, both lungs are affected. You're not getting any air. Okay, no oxygen. You get hypoxemia, refractive to oxygen therapy. What does that mean? If there's something is refractory to oxygen therapy, what do we mean by that?
So oxygen therapy isn't working.
Oxygen therapy isn't working. Okay, so you're giving them oxygen, and they're not showing any signs that their oxygenation is improving.